due to climate change and vulnerability, not only for conservation values, but also for well-being of the communities. And as well, we want to give the feedback about the transboundary aspects of the management that should be really included as part of the standards, and with that terms we will really commute and the CPD targets, especially for marine and terrestrial and Amazonian or the North American corridor as Colombia is involved. And part of the fifth criteria is right now more based on the tourism and the communication. So we want to really address that, but as well combine with the distribution of the benefits for the valuation of the goods and services, but also how there is a broad constituency from our public, as general public, like national or even international and local, using like the different tools. So we think that one of the criteria should reinforce of this bigger constituency, and that we have been working on. And I will not finish with the final thoughts from our working group. That is a pleasure to work on, to have the opportunity to work on the national standards and contribute to global standards. And part of the idea is that we don't need an additional assessment, because if we have in place the site assessment and the national assessment based on the management effectiveness, we can use this evidence to contribute how well we are managing and really moving for a quality of the management of our protected areas. Thanks.
Thanks, Agda. Now I'd like to introduce Professor, I'm sorry?
Is it possible to put on an air conditioner or circulate the air in the room in some way?
I think it's on, but we can ask them to turn it up. That would be good. Yeah.
It's cooler this side.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cooler on this side. You might want to move over.
Drop it down just to...
Yeah. Thanks for putting that on. I'd like to introduce Professor Vinod Mathur, who's the Dean of the Wildlife Institute of India. Dr. Mathur has had quite an accomplished career in wildlife management and protected areas, and has been active in the program with the World Wildlife Fund called Conservation Assured Tiger Standards.
Morning again. I spent considerable time in deciding on the title of the presentation. And as you can see here, there are lots of acronyms on the top. ME stands for the Management Effectiveness Evaluation, and CATS, we are saying Conservation Assured Through Tiger Standards. But then I realized that giving a subtitle of a logical progression of how do we move from this ME process into a more detailed process. And I soon began to realize that not everything which we say logical is easily understood or appreciated. And that's what I would be explaining as I move along in the presentation. What India has done recently is to institutionalize the management effectiveness process. We started with our natural parks and sanctuaries, and then we moved it to our tiger reserves. And we have a family of 39 tiger reserves specially set up for the conservation of tiger, and we have a management agency called the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which manages that. So this authority then approached the Wildlife Institute of India in putting up a framework, and obviously we were banking upon the IUCN WCPA framework, but we realized that the framework, the 6 elements were fine, but we had to develop or tweak our own set of indicators to represent the situation which reflects best the ground situation in which these tiger reserves are managed. And so we picked up these 30 headline indicators, and I said we adapted to the Indian field situation, and this report was published last year. In our governance process, now there is a directive from the Prime Minister's office that all national park and sanctuaries, all tiger reserves would be independently evaluated and the results would be placed in the parliament. So that's an added layer of responsibility which has been added to this process, and that's what has been done so far. Now what this ME assessment gave us was these 39 tiger reserves that you see were then grouped into a category of 4. On your left are the 14 tiger reserves which were categorized as very good by the independent team which went. Then we had set of 11 which were categorized as good, and then there were these 5 of them which were satisfactory, and 2 of them came under poor category. So this kind of a categorization was done. But as you can understand that when we got the managers to share these results, everybody had an issue that why his or her park is not in this list and that list and so on and so forth. So what we did, although the ME process was giving us a score of say 84 or 74 or 67, but what we did at that point of time was to lump them all together as very good. So very good are parks which have ranged from 75 and above on a score of 1 to 100. So we have this family of 14 tiger reserves over there, but still the question remains that how do you still ascertain that these are among the best managed parks or protected areas in the country? And that's when WWF and Sue with Mike and Mark Hawkins put forward this idea. We thought that it would be good to look at further insight into the ME process, because ME was giving us a kind of a broad idea that these are what on a relative scale these tiger reserves are. But when you start looking specifically how effective a tiger reserve is in conservation of tigers, then we start getting variable results. Because then you are specifically the species is in focus, and the ME indicators, those 30 of them, were looking at many things, including tiger populations. So there was a whole range of issues of looking at tiger trends, and whether those increasing trends are reflected in the way the score at tiger reserve has got. Somewhere they were and somewhere they won't. So we then looked into various aspects of it, that ME scores cannot be interpreted independently. Tiger biology and tiger sociology is a totally different issue. The park may, because there are situations where however good the park is being managed or a tiger reserve is managed, there are limits to what the tiger numbers can be. Because obviously the habitat is a function, the prey base is a function, and a whole range of such issues were there. So what I'm trying to say is, it set up a kind of a stage where we need to now look more carefully into the ME process, which of course we will now repeat it at a 4-year interval. But by the time we do that, we then started looking at what other standards are available, and can we further refine these standards. And we had a series of meetings with Mark and with Nigel and with Sue and Mike, so on, and we were then struggling to put these standards together. But I must also say that it took us almost 2 years to explain to our PA agency, the National Tiger Conservation Authority, that why ME was important and needed. Initially grudgingly, but they believed in the technical backing of the WII, and they accepted that yes, we can subject it to that. But when we got and we gave these results, okay, they were very happy that yes, we have got something, we have ideas of what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the actionable points. But then when we had another discussion that now we want to move from ME to CATS, again has come a resistance. That why again you want to subject all these things over there. But the managers look at it differently. All those who are in this list of 14 would like to know that what more they can do. And obviously there is a great feeling of aspiration that how do Indian parks compare with the rest of the world. Because when ideas come up, when somebody asks in India or a minister asks that where in the world he should visit, and we say okay, you could go to Kruger, you could go to Serengeti. And the same thing is there, that why can't we set up a standard if somebody from outside the world wants to visit a park or the park in India, can we do that? So these are the kind of ideas which we are trying to explain, that these would be the benefits in the process. And I said that these 30 headline indicators, they gave us a complete insight of what was happening in our tiger reserve. And on the lighter side, because last 2-3 days we are talking on capacity building, the bottommost indicator is the adequacy of trained manpower. So this still remains a challenge, and it was all across the board of 39 tiger reserves that we still do not have either they are aging or not adequately trained, not adequately motivated. So of course we are now looking into those aspects as well. But then when it comes to tiger being an iconic animal and very important for the country, we then started looking at that what more needs to be specifically done in the context of tiger. As I said, any process gives you overall management, but here we are now tweaking it. You might say that why you are doing it, but yes, there are certain species which need some specific focused effort. Tiger for one is there, snow leopard is there, elephant is there. So every country would have its own set of either species or ecosystems which need to be very specifically looked at how well they are doing. So then we said that this is a situation. Tigers again continue to be pushed in the tiger range countries, and it's not only India. Of course, India has the best chance of seeing this species go into many more years over there. So then we started looking at that, and we said okay. And parallelly, we were getting advice from Mark about this green listing process, and we said okay. Again, the question is that many of these developments are going parallelly. So unless we are talking and communicating, it will be very difficult to look at what one process has reached. But we said that yes, these are the standards. And then again, I would like to reiterate that any process itself was developed in consultation with managers. But here in this catch process, we have gone one stage further on it, and we are trying to talk to the experts, to the park managers, and to get their insight and their expert knowledge that what is required for tiger protection and conservation, and what more that needs to be done. There is an organization called the GTF and the GTI. They are specifically interested in tiger conservation. They are also wanting to know that whatever investments is being made in tiger reserves and in tiger range countries, is it resulting to any results or not. So then that is what we imagine, that what kind of benefits it will give for those who are interested in conservation of tigers. And as they said, that there are 13 tiger range countries where we need to very specifically look that what are the gaps, what are the threats over there, and the benefits will flow to the government, to the civil society, to donor agencies, which, as I said, in this particular case, GTI and GTF are making huge investment of their time and their money and their technical expertise, and they are specifically interested to know that how well these tiger reserves are there, which one of them is doing better, and what good practices are being done in that. Now what we have thought was, and as I think Sandra also mentioned, that you need not again start a process de novo of assessing your parks. We already have these 39 tiger reserves which have been recently assessed. We have a good amount of information, a good amount of insight. What we are now asking our managers, and especially those ones which are in the very good category of 14 tiger reserves, that which one of them would like to subject it to a further analysis. And that is what in the pilot phase we have been able to identify. Again, it's a voluntary process. Two of the tiger reserve managers have come forward and said that yes, that is what we need to do. For other 13 tiger range countries, some of them have done the NEE process, some of them have still to do. And that process again has to be of certain standard before you start accepting the outcomes as a baseline for the catch process. And as you can see here, we have looked at this process again. It will start with those PAs or those tiger reserves which have done their NE. It will also mean a commitment from the managers that they want to strive and achieve a certain degree of standards. And then the final certification, as I said, in the case of tiger, the Global Tiger Forum right now is the apex body which is looking into tiger conservation. So these kind of mechanisms of who will do it, who will certify it, and we would be learning parallelly as the green listing process goes on. And obviously with IUCN, with Mark, with WCPA, the benefits of the green listing process will flow into that. And we are committed that this process, as it gets evolved and developed, continues to align itself with the green list process. Because again, then somebody will say that what is a green list, what is a CAT's outcome of that, and what is NE. So these are small issues, but believe me, in the minds of the decision maker, he gets confused that how many processes are there and what am I supposed to accept and what am I supposed to approve, and what am I supposed to reject. So as I said, in the next few steps, these 4 pilot sites are there, 2 in India, in Nepal, in Chitwan. They also had that ME process under an EUH project, and their initial testing has been done, and we're looking forward to do it in the 2 reserves in India. We hope that some kind of a launch we should be able to do in the CBT COP meeting which India is hosting. And as I said, right now this exercise is focused from on tigers, but nobody prevents us for doing a similar exercise for rhinos, because rhinos also are facing the same fate, limited in distribution, facing the threat of poaching and others. So it could be conservation assured for rhinos, it could be for coral triangle. There is no limitations on that. If there is an interest and if there is an expertise available, these things can also be expanded on other things. I think that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. I think you can see there's a lot of potential for the application of greenless standards in different fields. Now I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Dong-Won Shin, who is the Executive Director of the Korean National Park Service. Dr. Shin has been with in the environmental field for over 30 years, with the past 3 years being with the Korean National Park Service. I should also say that he's been a tremendous host to the people, his colleagues in the national parks and protected areas throughout the world this past week, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Shin.
Korean man does the right I am Dong-Won Shin, working for Korean National Park Service, Executive Director for Nature Conservation. I really happy and also honored to make this speech. Very meaningful and very important workshop. So a couple of days, Korean National Park Service and the IUCN concluded that cooperation agreement for the strengthen the management capacity of national park through support to the IUCN Green List initiative. I think that yesterday I also mentioned that until 21st century, one of the excellent plans by IUCN is the Red List initiative. Also, it's continuing, but also I think that from the 21st century, the Green List or protected area should be one of the excellent plans for IUCN. So in that sense, some participation of Korean National Park Service to the Green List, and also some kind of, not much, but as long as our situation allowed, definitely we are some cooperation and support. So this should be a really good base for the future global community. So the red list might be some species, and in a sense like a point, but green list is not point. Area, big area, the huge area. So this kind of green list initiative really the big step of the IUCN. So from now on, so as an executive director of the Korean National Park Service, based on this kind of cooperation in the workshop, continuously we will do and help and also participate in this green list initiative. Congratulations on start of real important green list initiative. Thank you very much.
Okay, now what we'd like to do is move into the interaction session. So I'm going to ask our panel, a number of panelists that we've invited to come up. These panelists are Sue Stolten from Equilibrium Research. Sue is, if you've read anything in protected areas, you probably read something that Sue has written. She's had a long career in that area. Fiona Leverington. Fiona is a co-chair of the WCPA Management Effectiveness Specialist Group. Hag Young Hyo from Korean National Park Service. He's a research fellow and is also working closely with us in IUCN and the Green List. And Sandra Valenzuela, who you had just heard a little just recently. And also James Hardcastle, who is actually working in the Global Protected Areas Program, same office I'm with. And he is working as working in program and development for the office. So essentially what I want to